here. I mean, it's all the spice here in round 8 of Tata Steel. And we have the handshake. The clocks have been pressed. I love this moment. What are we going to see from Praggnanandhaa? What is he going to open with? And, well, he's taking his time over the first move. Don't keep us waiting too long, Prag. We want to see what you've got prepared.
E4.
Let's keep it closed. Nothing. So let's do a quick action replay where knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. Now we're in Lopez territories. Knight f6 says, hey, do you want a Berlin? He says no. And there we see up the bishop to c5. We see Gukesh changing the pawn structure. Bishop takes c6, d takes c6. Now it's a kind of interesting game. What you're going to see is that often black will be playing with a bishop pair. That's no doubt about it. But for white, it's all about this pawn structure. What they are dreaming about is kind of actually transferring the game into an endgame where this e-pawn has been traded off for the d-pawn, and white just has a clear pawn majority on the king side, and you're effectively pawn up because this structure isn't mobile. Now it sounds really simple, but in actual fact that's the essence of this type of position. So what's going to happen is that after the developing moves, knight d2, note that doesn't go to c3 because you want to be doing Lopez style stuff of going c3, queen c2, keep the tension on the board. a5, just giving a square for this bishop just to hide out. Knight c4, putting pressure against e5. Knight to d7, more or less forced. And c3, castles. The queen steps up, getting ready to connect the rooks. And here we see b6. And I wouldn't be surprised actually to see a move like bishop to e3 on the board. And the whole idea is that, hey, black has the bishop pair, so why not get rid of that and instead play on the fact that, we have that extra pawn on the king side. So I'm predicting bishop to e3, or if Prag wants to build up with d4. So those are the kind of two plans that I
guess bishop to e3 also asks a bit of a question, right? It's saying you're not going to be necessarily moving your knight for any reason, but in some cases you're threatening to triple up the pawns on the c-file, which would be absolutely horrendous in the long term. At the same time, if you play bishop takes e3 and you're black, well, knight takes e3 and you're looking at that really, really juicy f5 square, and as someone who plays the Roy Lopez himself, I've always got one eye on getting a knight to that square, so that seems a delightful place to be. So what you would probably end up with is that you just get the tension ratcheting up even more. If black doesn't want to take and white doesn't want to take, then we find ways to continue to develop. But there are questions being asked of black's light squared bishop. There are questions being asked of white's knight on c4. Yes, it's there.
left the position here, and I'm just going to run through the moves through lightning speed.
Yeah, please, because I spotted this, but I genuinely didn't think it worked.
Well, it did work, as you can see, because the queen came to b3, and this is where everything got traded off, and black won the b7 pawn, and the knight came back to d2 to defend b3, and this is more or less where we're seeing the position right now. The king steps up, and it's up to Gukesh whether he wants to press or not. The problem is he has this pawn on a3. That's a beautiful piece, but on the other hand, there's no inroads. I mean, his king can't magically cross this border, and it's very difficult to see a plan of improvement. And you know, Gukesh just can't calculate his way out of this one as well. That's his strong point. You take the pawn, the king just steps up and is untouchable there. So it's just a question of waiting in the best way. This knight on d2 can't really move to c4. It has to keep an eye on the b3 point. And I guess the only question would be what happens if Pragg tries to play b4.
I'm not going to say c5 is automatic, but you gotta be looking at that, right? If you can break that apart, then there's opportunities for the rook to come in. There's opportunities for c3 to become a little bit of a target. b4 looks quite natural, to be fair. I'm also thinking black has to act quickly so that the a3 pawn doesn't give its life in vain. And then I think...
But then we're in a situation where everything is completely full.
Yes.
4 pawns. It's good enough for the draw, let's face it. And Pragg has just over 3.5 minutes, so... Oh!
Yes, it is.
And then no more moves played. A draw was in fact offered by Gukesh, accepted by Pragg, and we have a peaceful result between our two country mates. And of course, the world champion and Praggnanandhaa, they continue to share the lead.
I really like the idea behind why it turns out it was playable. We spent, or let me backtrack there and say I spent a lot of time thinking that rook b7 didn't work because as soon as you stack the other rook, there are all sorts of really scary variations where the a pawn could just roll down the board and queen.